to fight on the landing ground.
Thank you for joining us. You are listening to A Radio, and this is the Morning Moment. Please click on the follow button on Spreaker.com. This piece is from Reaction.life. It concerns comments made by a former head of Britain's MI6, which is Britain's external intelligence force. I'm going to read you part of the article, but I urge you to read the whole piece. It concerns his views on the dangers of the Brexit deal that has been done. After all, shouldn't he know? Here's the piece. Links on my site. Former MI6 chief tells MPs to vote down May's agreement. MPs should vote down the Prime Minister's Brexit deal, says the former head of MI6, Sir Richard Dearlove. The former intelligence chief, known as C, and the Falklands hero, Major General Julian Thompson, along with other former senior military and security figures, have warned that the government has, during Brexit negotiations, embedded the UK in the EU defence and security structures without seeking proper parliamentary oversight or approval. The group has warned that Prime Minister's deal constitutes a threat to national security, putting the UK forces and intelligence and security interests under the emerging superstructure of EU policy. They claim transferring defence sovereignty and compromising the crown jewels in our intelligence relationships is a bridge too far in the Cabinet Office's stealthy efforts to lock the country into a perpetual alignment with the EU, unquote. In highly unusual terms, Number 10 has reprimanded Dearlove, and now he hits back. Tonight, Dearlove and Thompson have released the text of a letter sent to MPs. This is just part of the letter. To members of Parliament, on November 29, with others, we published a letter to the Prime Minister. It explained that the withdrawal agreement, on which you shortly will be called to vote on, threatens to change our national security policy by binding us into new sets of EU-controlled relationships. Buried in the agreement is the offer of a new, deep and special relationship with the EU defence, security and intelligence, which cuts across three fundamentals of our national security policy: membership of NATO, our close bilateral defence and intelligence relationship with the United States of America, and the Five Eyes Intelligence Alliance. Number 10's immediate response to our letter showed that we had touched a raw nerve. However, their rebuttal indicated a worryingly poor understanding of the issues. We repudiate their arguments and their criticism. See below. The first duty of the state above trade is the security of its citizens. The withdrawal agreement abrogates the fundamental contract that would place control of aspects of our national security in foreign hands. Vote against this bad agreement. And the piece continues. I'm just going to give you the headlines. There's 12 or 13 points that they make, but these are just the headlines. 1. The deal surrenders British national security by subordinating UK defence forces to military EU control. 2. The flexible partnership is not on offer, only subordination to an inflexible pooled law of EU. 3. The EDA's Dirk Stylberger confirmed that there would be no flexibility in the participation rules for the UK if it took part in the European Defence Fund. 4. Norway voted clearly not to join the EU. The Norwegian elite therefore engineered a de facto membership as a rule taker only. 5. Paul Johnson, the UK's representative on the Political and Security Committee, said deliberately been more descriptive than prescriptive. 6. The idea the government will be able to create a flexible framework is contradicted by the principles of the EU defence autonomy. 7. Most serious of all, while knowing the truth, the government has for more than a year refused to confirm that the UK would be subject to structural and institutional relationship with the EU on sharing of intelligence. 8. Number 10 states that the UK is leaving the EU's common security and defence policy, the European Defence Agency and all the EU defence structures. 9. In contrast to the alternative offered by the WTO, the withdrawal agreement will disadvantage the UK defence industries and the UK government as Europe's largest purchaser of defence equipment. 10. The EU has developed new frameworks and programmes which have the potential to duplicate and detract from NATO in 20 separate areas, from science and technology to logistics, airlift and eventually emergency chain of command. 11. Minimal competent negotiation over the last 2 years should have hammered out a free trade agreement, but it did not do so. 12. The EU will use defence industrial cooperation as a lever to coerce the UK via instruments which have scope to grow beyond recognition. And the piece continues, but you can clearly see that this gentleman has a handle on what's really going on. And quite frankly, in my opinion, and many others, the UK is being sold down the river by someone who claims to be a conservative, Theresa May, but is in fact rather something else. Please take the time to read the document in full, but anyone who signs this and anyone who votes for this needs to have their head looking at. Your thoughts? You can find more at aradio.wordpress.com, where you can find links to us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Gab and email. You can now find us on Spotify. Just go to the podcast section and type Canadian Politics with a Twist and you'll find us. We are continuing to reach out to you, so please pass on the links. Please click on the follow button on Spreaker.com. You can listen to all my morning moments at Spreaker.com under A Radio, that's EHRADIO, A Radio, and please click on the like button. And you can find all my podcasts and morning moments at aradio.wordpress.com and click on the Morning Moments tab.